of craziness, particularly in the last 24 hours, that's been going on in Venezuela. And it looks like there was an attempted coup d'etat, although there's been a slow-moving attempted coup going on for quite a while now. Yesterday, there was like a call to arms. There was these crazy images coming out of images or videos of tanks rolling over people in the streets. You had Pompeo and Bolton were both aggressively tweeting about this regime being overthrown. Donald Trump, strangely, was kind of in the background. Then he did come out and tweet a little bit later, like, I'm keeping my eye on the situation or something. But anyway, what the hell is going on in the latest in Venezuela? What's the standing? I know I was texting back and forth with you, and you seemed to be skeptical of the idea that this government was going to be overthrown today.
Yeah, it's funny, man. As you said, they tried this. They sort of have been in the process of trying this since the middle of January, is when Vice President Pence told Guaido to go ahead and declare himself El Presidente and all of this. And it didn't work then. They must have told Trump that, once this guy declares himself the president, then the government and the military will shift over to him because everybody hates this Maduro so much. And then they tried that. And then nothing happened. And so when I first heard the news yesterday, coup ongoing, military coup in Venezuela was like even the CNN headline. I assumed way too much for about a quarter of a minute that, they actually made some arrangements with some colonels to overthrow Maduro, to arrest him and replace him. And so, geez, this is, I guess, what they were waiting for. Now they're doing it. And then, no, not at all. He just came out and said, hey, everyone protest, and hey, military, switch sides to me. And then they didn't. And then that was it. The whole thing was over. There was no coup. Maduro was never in danger. Pompeo tried to claim, he was fueling up his jet. He was preparing to flee. Yeah, he wasn't going to wait around to, be arrested and carted off by these guys or anything. No, he was just going to run away out of pure cowardice because you know how Maduro is with the cowardice. But then the Russians talked him out of surrendering and convinced him to stay. Give me a break. I mean, that they would even try to say that and to think that any of us would believe that is completely stupid. It was completely ridiculous. So, but then that was it. And then the footage that you saw, I forgot, it's been too many minutes now. I can't remember exactly how you said it, but you said it wrong. Like it was images, something like that. No, it was one image. It was one 15-second clip of one, not tank, but armored personnel carrier with 4 rubber tires that ran down 3 or 4 protesters while they were throwing Molotov cocktails at it. And then they played that one clip all day.
Yeah.
All day. Like maybe thousands of times. Maybe fairness and accuracy in reporting counted or something. Thousands of times all day long. The same footage, the exact same clip on CNN and Fox. Right? These most powerful television news organizations in the world collectively have one camera in Venezuela, and it's pointed directly at what's at most a couple of thousand anti-government protesters. Some revolution.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, to me, that's almost all you need to know is look at the way that the world works, that CNN and Fox show you this one clip zoomed all the way in all day long, while meanwhile, Caracas is the city of how many million people? Show me what's going on in Caracas, man. Show me the revolution. Where is it? Of course, you know where the revolution was. The revolution was rallying outside of the presidential palace in support of the president, telling the Americans, the Yankees, and their fascist lackeys to go to hell.
Yeah.
And I'm more libertarian than the next guy. But if I was a Venezuelan, I would be on the side of whoever is standing against the foreigners intervening in my country, period.
And that seems to happen a lot. I mean, isn't this like America hasn't learned its lesson by now? But isn't this the thing like with even back with Castro, where everybody was they were so convinced that all the people were going to turn against Castro because, I mean, look, the Americans decided he's not the legitimate leader, and we're going to come in there and overthrow him. And then they're shocked. And I will say, I get for people who aren't paying attention closely and who just take it as a given that America were the good guys. They'd be like, what? These people are hungry. They're not living well. I mean, this system isn't working. Why would they be supporting this guy? But I think it all comes down to what you just said. There's one side is a foreign invader, and the other side is, for better or for worse, is them.
Look, no one in the world believes that America invades other countries for their best interests other than Americans. Okay? The other 7 billion people on the planet aren't that stupid. They look at Korea, at Vietnam, just never even mind World War II, and nuking cities full of women and children. You know, firebombing Tokyo to the ground, boiling people to death in the rivers. You know, never even mind that. Just look at American support for and coup d'etats on behalf of and right-wing fascist dictators around this planet since World War II. You know, when Suharto overthrows Sukarno and then he murders 1 million Timorese, or whatever, 750,000 Timorese, that's USA. That's Gerald Ford did that to those people because Suharto was nothing but an employee of the USA. Yeah. Americans don't know that. Everybody else does. And when the Venezuelans see the Yankees coming, they don't say, hooray, thank goodness. These good-hearted idiots who don't know anything sitting in front of their TVs, their friendly wishes are going to be expressed through the foreign policy of John Bolton and Donald Trump and the U.S. Marine Corps and the CIA in their country. For them, only an American could be so stupid as to believe our government saying things like that. Look at what they did in Iraq. They got 1 million people killed. You think Bush was bad? Obama turned right around and took Al-Qaeda's side in Syria, leading to the rise of the Islamic State and a war that killed another 500,000 people at least. Donald Trump right now is halfway through. Well, I don't know. He's equal in time now to Barack Obama in the genocide in Yemen, where the strategy is centered, Dave, around the policy of making the people so starving and helpless that they will risk everything to overthrow their government for us.
Yeah.
Which we already know is stupid and insane and cannot work. And even if you did, you know, go to Columbia and then work at a think tank in DC, and so therefore your mind is full of mush, just look at the history of Iraq War 1.5 in the 90s, where they strangled the people through blockade for a decade, and they didn't all rise up and die trying to overthrow Saddam for us. Instead, all that happened was the 9/11 attack on the United States was provoked.
Yeah.
And everything got made that much worse. So, like, seriously, I want to grab like every stupid fat housewife in America going, well, I think we should go help those people, and just scream at them. You don't have the right to kill anyone, okay? You don't have the right to kill anyone. Fuck you. Who the fuck do you think you are? What if Venezuela's intelligence services tried to launch a coup d'etat and overthrow the government of the United States? As corrupt and violent and dangerous as it is, it's a far worse government than the Maduro government by any standard. But would we tolerate the Russians meddling in our election? Would we tolerate? Look, I mean, it's silly to even phrase it that way, right? It's absolutely to put the shoe on the other foot is the argument ad absurdum. Yeah. What would the American people do if anyone ever tried that shit here? We would kill them all to death. That's what would happen. Give me a break.
Yeah, look, man, there's never been, and this is part of the reason why I've always been sold by the blowback argument and just by the argument against the United States domination of the world is that nobody can ever respond to that argument, the obvious hypothetical of what if they were doing this to us. It's not, people all day long can make these arguments about like radical Islam and, well, the problem is that there's a direct line from the teachings of the Quran to being a suicide bomber, and you don't see this in other religions, but all you have to say is like, well, but what if other people were doing exactly the same thing to us? It's so obvious that all of the militias in America would become what the empire would call terrorists overnight. So I completely agree with you, and I've never heard anybody successfully able to take that argument on. So,
well, and look, on the Islam thing, let me say real quick.
Sure.
Did anyone in your life ever tell you that it was Buddhist extremism that motivated the kamikaze pilots in World War II? That they were so brainwashed by their stupid ass religion that they would commit suicide? Or, I know, maybe it was Shinto extremism, not Buddhist.
Right, yeah.
Actually, I've seen interviews with the kamikaze pilots who had survived through either crashing before they had the chance to kill themselves or they were never deployed and whatever. And I've seen these men, assuming you trust the translated, closed caption on the bottom of the screen. And they specifically said, we didn't give a damn about the emperor. We weren't brainwashed into Shintoist emperor worship. We were fighting to delay the invasion of our homeland to protect the our wives and children, dude. Get the hell out of here. How about in Sri Lanka, where up until 2003, when America began occupying Iraq, was the leading leaders of suicide terrorism in all of world history. And you know whose side it was? Was it the ISIS versus the Christians like last Easter the other day? No. It was secular, communist, atheist Hindus versus the Buddhists.
Right.
No Muhammad anywhere nearby, anywhere. No Qurans, no, not even, Yahweh or God or Allah, whatever the one name for the one true God or whatever. These are atheist Hindus versus Buddhists doing suicide attacks. They were the leaders in suicide attacks. And it was because of occupation. As Robert Pape showed in his book, Dying to Win, and then in the follow-up, Cutting the Fuse, it's occupation by a foreign power. And the more foreign the occupation, the more likely you're going to get suicide attacks in response. In other words, if the Americans occupy Canada, we probably won't get a lot of suicide attacks from white Christian Canadians who would resent the hell out of the Americans and probably fight, but might not resort to suicide bombing. But if you had, the future Saudi Arabian Empire invade Canada, and you had, combat forces with different skin tone, different language, different religion, occupying the country and determining to redraw its destiny, the way America did with Iraq, then you would see suicide attacks by white Christian Canadians against their Muslim occupiers. And yes, they would invoke Jesus as they did it too. Of course they would.
Yeah, right. And that almost becomes just the fallback, like, well, that's our religion, and so that's what we kind of invoke as we do this. And just to prove your point more, of course, the obvious just example that, the suicide bombing specifically, I think, is out of desperation and out of that being the best means to affect your goal. So if you have planes and bombs, you'll probably just drop the bombs. But if you don't have bombs and the only way you can get to people is to strap one on your chest or drive your plane right into them, but then you'll probably go that route. But think about all of the, what do we have? Something like 11, 12,000 murders that are committed just with guns every year. I don't know exactly how many murders in the country are, but then, and I get this. I don't even think this is that crazy because human beings are tribal creatures to some degree. But when a bunch of Muslims fly some planes into our building, it's very easy to work up energy to be like, oh yeah, we're going to go kill those motherfuckers now, because That's the feeling, is like this outsider who has they're not a part of our team. They don't have a right to just fucking come in here. You know, if you got one crazy guy in your family, you're like, oh, fuck, that sucks. We may have to do something about it. But when some other family comes in and starts killing your people, you're like, no, fuck that. We go to war with that family. So I get the instinct, but that exact same instinct is why they're coming over here to fly the planes into our building to begin with. It's actually... Here's the beautiful story. It's more about what unites us as human beings than what divides us against each other. There's the silver lining on the whole thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Look, everybody, they're just like us. That's just the same as we are. Osama bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri had adopted the exact morality of Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan and George Bush and Bill Clinton and Madeleine Albright, who said it's okay to murder whoever you feel like if you are doing that in order to achieve your objective. In fact, I used to have these great sound bites like together of Bush saying, look, the definition of a terrorist is someone who's willing to kill people in order to achieve their objective. And then it's Dick Cheney going, and we're going to have to turn to the dark side and we're going to have to kill some people in order to achieve our objectives.
Yeah, was it George Bush had that one? That he had that one line where he just said, because God bless George W. Bush for his candor at times. It would actually just make our case like a lot easier that he would just say it. But at one point he actually just said, you're either going to do what we want you to do or we'll kill you. And you were like, yeah, okay, there you go. There is the George W. Bush doctrine. Thank you for thank you. It's something about Donald Trump that you almost find endearing too, is that they're not sophisticated enough to veil what they're saying, so they just kind of come out and say it, and you're like, all right, good. I actually, in some ways, appreciate that more than a Barack Obama, who, you know, like is so artful at covering up what he's really saying.
Absolutely agree. Bolton's another great example, and back to Venezuela.
Yes.
Bolton went on Fox News and said, well, we want to steal the oil. What we're going to do is we're going to take over the country and we're going to give their oil over to American corporations so we can have the oil and the money too, because we're thieves.
Yeah, and he did after that say, oh, this will work out better for the people of Venezuela as well. But he was very blatant. Yes, you know? That's right. Like it's I guess for the ones that survive, he's saying maybe it'll work out better for them. Sure as fuck doesn't work out for the ones that die. And then, of course, it also doesn't really end up working out very well in most of these cases.